Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Is the Why Have You Forsaken Me psalm really about forsaking? We're going to look at Psalm 22 again here today. Now, yesterday we reviewed Psalm 103 and learned that we have a God who, at least for now, who has perfect justification to be wrathful whenever he wants, doesn't treat us that way. He doesn't deal with us according to the way we have the right to be treated. He doesn't repay us corresponding to the trespass against him. He forgives us our iniquities. So we find in the Psalms that the Lord remembers we are dust, Psalm 103, and that he does not treat the dust, us, as our behavior merits in light of his holiness and in light of his perfection. He knows our frame, and he exhibits from his holiness steadfast love towards us. Now, one of the things he does is he removes our transgression. He forgets our sin, and Scripture describes it in a bunch of different ways. As far as the east is from the west, putting your sins behind your back, him forgetting sins by blotting them out or trampling them underfoot or throwing them into the depths of the sea. So we, like David in Psalm 103, end up just blessing the Lord in an over-the-top way. Why is that? Because his response to us, his hesed, his steadiness, his forgiveness is not the same as our response to him, which is rebellion and sin and testing. And then we are also reminded in Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. So remember, the presence of God is curiously promised to the smashed and the shattered. And it is in the brokenheartedness that there is a more porous awareness of the divine. So somehow you know, and someone you know is in the thick of it. Maybe it might be you trying to trust God, trying to do the right thing. And let's remember them today. All right, so let's turn our attention to Psalm 22. Very famous psalm. It starts out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, like many psalms, it starts with a feeling and ends with a fact. Here's the fact at the end. For he has not despised or abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, and he has not hidden his face from him, but has heard when he cried to him. So let's ask, if you were suffering slowly, if you were suffocating slowly on a cross, what psalm would you quote twice? Well, I think Psalm 22 is the answer. Jesus quotes the beginning of the psalm on the cross, which is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he also quotes the end of the Psalm 22, which is, it's finished, it's done, he's done it. And even his enemies, as they're watching Jesus on the cross, at that moment in time, contemporaneously associated and quoted Psalm 22 with what was happening there. So Matthew 27:43, he trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he desires him. For he said, I am the Son of God. And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. So they too, his enemies, quote Psalm 22. The bad guys point to it. The bad guys say that Psalm 22 is about Jesus on the cross. All right, here's a fun fact about something horrible, which is crucifixion. So the earliest recording of crucifixion is in 519 BC. It was invented by the Persian, borrowed by the Carthaginians, and then perfected by the Romans. And in Psalm 22, there's all these descriptions about crucifixion, pierced my hands and feet. And here's the kicker. When David wrote the psalm in 1000 BC, no one knew about crucifixion. It was uninvented in human history. So Psalm 22 is actually a prophecy about crucifixion, written 480 years before crucifixion was even invented. So that's interesting about crucifixion. So in many ways, to read Psalm 22 is to join Jesus on the cross. Dehydration. I'm poured out like water. My tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. Dislocation. All my bones are out of joint. Cardiac tamponade, which is the probable cause of death. Cardiac effusion. My heart is like wax. It's melted within my breast. Exhaustion and suffocation. Verse 14, I am being poured out like water. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. You lay me in the dust of death. So there's all these parallels of crucifixion in Matthew 27 in the New Testament. my God, they mock me, they wag their heads, they divide my garments. So Christ, in my humble opinion, is the great subject of Psalm 22, or at least a great subject of Psalm 22. So Jesus is there winning the Super Bowl of salvation against the opponents of evil and death and demons and all the force of evil. So let's watch what happens in Psalm 22 and ask, what is the sufferer of Psalm 22, is he being forsaken? Is he being left alone? Is he being abandoned? To the people who say yes, I recommend read all the verses of Psalm 22 and see the intimacy and the togetherness that is exhibited in Psalm 22. Verse 24, my favorite, for he has not despised or abhorred the affliction of the afflicted. He has not hidden his face from him. He has heard when he cried to him. So if Psalm 22 is about Jesus, then he was not abandoned, not forsaken by his Father. And let's say it again, for he was not despised, not abhorred the affliction of the afflicted. He has not hidden his face from him, but heard him. So of all the Psalms, I probably have the biggest soapbox for this particular psalm. And I say this humbly, and I could be wrong. I'm not the greatest theologian. But it probably makes an important theological point. Was Jesus abandoned on the cross by the Father? Not according to Psalm 22. Read the whole psalm. So if you're making the argument that the Father turns his face away, we literally sing that song at my church, you're going to have to find a different psalm. So in conclusion, is the "Why Have You Forsaken Me" song actually about forsaking? No, not if you read the whole thing. The Father's face did not turn away, was not despised, and Jesus was not abhorred. So I hear the Father, rather than leaning away on Psalm 22, I hear him leaning in. I say that humbly before you today. Thanks for listening.